Welcome to the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify, the fast, lean learning machine, the fastest learning, most revenue-generating personalization platform for e-commerce.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode in the e-commerce growth show. All I can say at the moment is it's really good that I'm standing up doing these podcasts because the boys are back to their den-making antics. So there isn't one chair in the entire house that isn't in the lounge with a bunch of blankets over it. So interesting times last night, sat trying to watch a film in a corner of the room, and Michelle in the other corner. And then breakfast was basically hovering around a table because there were no chairs, but no, I managed to find one in the end. But fun and games, and at least they're not on their tablets all day, so that's great. Anyway, you know that these podcasts are all about bringing all sorts of thought leadership to the community. And today I've got a really interesting guy called Simon Calvert. And he is a very experienced director in many different roles over the last 30 years of his career, spanning pure play, multi-channel, omni-channel, and pure sort of bricks and mortar businesses, and has been running brands like Mankind, is very involved with Bon Marché, and also at the moment is running his consultancy called Future Today Retail. And notably one of the customers that he worked with there was Noon, which I hadn't heard of, but that's the Amazon of the Middle East. I'm sure many of you will know. But he's passionate about transformation, really, for the better, and has been working with Noon and other brands, obviously, in the wake of COVID, advising on technology to improve commercial decision-making and obviously to help brands become more customer-driven. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Melting a bit.
Yeah, it's lovely again, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, yeah.
I think
Wouldn't
it's
be English unless we were complaining about the weather, though, would we?
Oh, I know, one or the other, right? So just to start off, we were talking a little bit earlier about you used to work with Philip Green,
Yeah,
which is
right.
quite interesting guy to work for 12 years. Fair play to you. And you had a few funny tales to say about it, but why don't you tell the guys about a particular story?
Well, I mean, working for Philip was obviously a bit of a roller coaster at times. There was one particular occasion where I'd made a commercial decision which he really did not agree with. So
Yeah,
he hauled me over the coals with regards to that decision. But the key with Philip is that he very rarely forgets. So
yeah,
months afterwards, he kept reminding me about this decision that I'd made that he didn't agree with, and I was
right,
obviously in his bad books. Anyway, fast forward to a particular occasion where a lot of the BHS directors were sat around the table, and Philip was going round this round table. In turn, basically criticising everybody's ideas and strategies
yeah,
and trading decisions, etc., and slowly just building himself into an emotional tirade. And there must have been about 6 or 8 people around the table. Unfortunately, I was the last one that he came to. But by the time he came to me,
yeah,
he was in such an emotional tirade and really had run out of any expletives or comments he could
yeah,
make. So he just looked at me and went, "And you, and you, and you, you're just a wanker." At which point I started to laugh,
yeah.
and he started to laugh, thankfully, as well. And I obviously
Awesome.
apprised him, well, I think I've done all right just to be a wanker. Uh, and thankfully, that kind of
Yeah.
resolved the situation because people were just laughing.
No,
So
that's so funny. And I mean, is he always like that, or was he always like that, or was it a mix? Like, I mean, what was his leadership style like?
I mean, Philip um, is extraordinarily good trader.
Yeah,
Buying something for £2 and selling it for 20. It doesn't matter whether it's a T-shirt or a business.
Yeah.
He's extraordinarily good with numbers
Yeah.
in his head. Perhaps one of the best people I've ever come in contact with, and I'm fairly numerate. Um, uh, you know, he
Yeah.
he can be a really hard taskmaster, and
Yeah.
sometimes nothing is good enough. And he can give you a good kick uh, uh,
Yeah.
on quite regular basis.
Yeah.
However, the flip side of Philip is he can be very funny, very charismatic,
Yeah.
and also exceedingly loyal. So as
Yeah.
with all individuals,
Yeah.
there are positives and negatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the most important thing is, did you learn a lot from him?
I learned an awful lot
I bet.
from
I
him,
bet.
and in a strange kind of way, I miss working for him, which I know sounds a bit like a Protestant whipping themselves, but yeah. Um, and I learned through the years. I learned
Mm.
an awful lot from him, good
Yeah.
and bad, actually. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's often. Yeah.
how
Seeing.
not to motivate people
Yeah.
sometimes,
Oh,
and also,
yeah.
his extraordinarily commercial skills
Yeah.
have helped me significantly.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that, actually, because I often forget that I've completely taken for granted all of the negative things that I've seen in leadership. But actually seeing them and being able to benchmark and realize and gauge through my own journey that that isn't the way to do it is actually so helpful, as well as obviously seeing the good stuff that help you to learn.
I mean, I completely agree with that. That was very much my experience because Philip had a very demanding style. You couldn't, with your team, you couldn't necessarily replicate that demanding style. You had to be more adaptable and take a different approach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, to get the best out of people and in a way protect them as well
Yeah. No, for
uh,
sure.
from the
Yeah.
ferocity of it sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, very interesting experience, as you say. So, I mean, thank you for that. So, in terms of our chat today, the overarching theme in the wake of COVID, we were talking earlier about how obviously now the acceleration to e-commerce is even quicker than it was, and now you were just mentioning earlier the sales mix is now larger now already than it was. I think you mentioned sort of like 20 to 30% change in terms of the sales mix. And the thing that we were talking about that's very interesting for me actually was you mentioned, how do you make e-commerce profitable? And so for me, that's an interesting question, because I'm thinking in one respect, I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute. I mean, surely it's got to be profitable. But in the same time, even in the businesses that I'm in, like Segmentify and, you mentioned BigCommerce or whatever it might be, often actually companies aren't profitable, but are still running and end up, say, selling or being bought, exiting or whatever. So that's an interesting point that you make. So why don't you tell the guys what your sort of experience is around how you make e-commerce profitable?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that a lot of omni-channel operations between bricks and mortar and e-commerce, historically, the better contribution has often come from stores rather than from the e-commerce operations. There are obviously a lot of reasons behind that. Now that the revenue mix is looks like it's changed significantly in favour of e-commerce, that obviously has implications in terms of the profitability mix. There are exceptions, Next Directory, etc., is still quite profitable in terms of a contribution, but that drift not only has implications in terms of revenue, but also in terms of profitability. And I'm just quite interested, although it's a subject of conversation I have with some of my network. It's not really in the mainstream in terms of a big conversation. There's this assumption that that increase in participation of e-commerce will reflect in terms of profit contribution, but that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah, yeah. What? Just I might have just missed that, but you mentioned this before, but like you mentioned it again. Next Directory. What is that?
Next, obviously, have two operations. That they have their bricks and mortar operation, and they have their online operation, their directory operation, which is becoming more and more like a
Yeah,
marketplace. They sell Next products, but they also sell brands, etc. I mean, it was born out of the Next directory that
I
probably
see.
launched in the 90s, but
Uh,
has continued to grow, which is why they've stolen a march on a lot
I
of
see.
their competitors in providing that sort of middle market
Mhm.
marketplace, fashion marketplace, but also they do home uh, um, leadership segment.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I've been seeing their announcements actually, and how they're trying to grow that, and it's obviously doing well. Like you say, it's a bit of an exception. But carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably an exception for omni-channel retailers rather than a rule. But there are, you could say it of pure play operations as well. How much do they actually contribute from a profit perspective? Amazon historically, for the first 15 years, didn't make any money, no profit. They focused on creating value through the value of the overall business, buying market share and increasing the value of the business rather than profit. Jeff Bezos's well-known quote is that I don't focus on profitability. Profit is a tap I can turn on and off, which is a really interesting concept.
It is interesting. I don't understand that. What does that mean?
But basically, he's talking about short-term and long-term views. So
Right.
the long-term view is about creating a customer-centric organisation that builds advocacy through their customer base to increase sales, and by increasing sales, their value, the value of the business goes up because their future profit potential is increased because their turnover is increased,
Yeah.
rather than focusing on the short term. How much money did I make last week? Um, and I think that is part of the reason that bricks and mortar retailers have been slow on the uptake of technology and data to improve their businesses, because they have been very focused on uh, making money in the present rather than creating long-term value.
Yeah, I'm beginning to understand what you mean now. So it's that long-term longevity approach to business, which actually is not necessarily going to make you money overnight, but in the long term is going to make it valuable.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. No, I've got you. I've got you. So dive into some of the areas then, as you mentioned, about where you'd be focusing and how you would be approaching that to make them more profitable.
Well, there's a lot of considerations. I mean, the first one is revenue. Where does revenue come from? And we generally currently look at ROI or sales revenue in terms of the last click, and the last click just shows you where the sale was eventually executed. It doesn't necessarily tell you all the components of that customer journey and all the different touch points. So, for instance, a customer that starts researching online and then goes into store, confirms what their choice is, goes back home, goes online, and makes the purchase. Does all of their purchase appear online, or should some of it be attributed to stores? Equally, if that customer had researched it online, gone into stores, and purchased it in stores,
Mhm.
should it be all attributed to in store? So
Mhm.
you need a different approach to attribution to really understand the components of that customer journey and the relative value
Mhm.
that each of those components bring. So
Right.
is another aspect. So well, they may have found the product initially on social, and then gone online, and then back into store. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really understanding that customer journey, I think, is important, because you can't just look at bottom line profit contribution based on revenue and assume that
Mm.
the shopping journey started and ended in one place.
Yeah, yeah. How do you do that? I mean, that's a very you mentioned a few complicated scenarios there, which completely, now you've told them to me, in that omni-channel scenario makes complete sense. How do you get that attribution right?
Well, I mean, attribution is one of the holy grails as such. What I would say is that there is a lot of technology out there that is improving attribution. Linear models of attribution that give you a percentage to each point in that customer journey. But the foundation of these is all to do with data, and data really is the key to understanding that customer journey and attributing it as correctly as you can to appreciate that customer journey and the different
Yeah.
different touch points.
Mm. So what sort of, I mean, I'm interested. It completely makes sense to me. But so are there must be what data systems out there that are pulling this data from all these different touch points and then doing that linear attribution thing that you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. There are some businesses working on improving attribution.
Yeah.
Away from last click, because last click just gives you a very siloed
Yeah.
view on things.
Well, yeah.
Which actually is part of the point.
Yeah.
E-commerce is one thing, but it can't be looked as a silo function. It's as much
No.
to do with data and marketing
Mm.
and commercial as it is anything else.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you are an omni-channel business, then it's going to be biased, isn't it? And you're potentially looking at something through the wrong lens, thinking that, well, something is potentially less profitable than it really is, because actually it's really contributing to the customer journey, as opposed to just going, well, they went on the checkout and bought it, bosh, then it must be an e-commerce sale.
Completely, and I'm sure that one of the components of future bricks and mortar retail will be
Yeah.
as marketing media to advertise the brand and encourage the overall community with that brand rather than just as purchase hubs.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So what sort of, I'm just interested, I mean, in terms of actual platforms, are we talking like something like Tableau or something? Or I've heard Good Data. Is it these kind of guys that are doing stuff? Or is it the brands themselves doing it in-house? Bit of both?
Yeah, there are quite a few solution providers doing some interesting things out there. Probably
Interesting.
throughout
Yeah.
J-Wing, people like that are doing some interesting things with attribution.
J-Wing, I've heard of them. Are they, is that a product or is that an agency or something? Or
It's a solution provider.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, data
Yeah.
science solution provider.
Yeah. I've heard of them. I've heard of them. Kind of big enterprise player, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's an interesting question. So have you done stuff like this with brands as well as part of your consultancy or in the roles that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, we've in a number of brands that I've worked with,
Yeah.
either with Future Today retail or in the permanent roles that I've had, uh,
Mm,
finding this, you know, a
mm,
better form of attribution has always been a bit of a holy grail
yeah.
because it would influence all kinds of commercial decision making between, from
Mm,
um, what stores you keep open to where you spend your digital marketing money
yeah.
to how you actually target customers on that
Mm,
customer journey.
yeah. No, completely. I can see how it all fits into that piece. What about you mentioned a couple of other areas I know, but one of them I think was a segmentation piece that you mentioned, which I suppose segues from the data element.
Yeah, I mean, the collection of data is so you can understand more about the customer and segment them in a more granular way rather than
Mm,
just hitting them with big blast marketing communication, tailoring things to uh, their particular part of the journey that they're on. or uh, get, identifying segments of potential customers because those potential customers look quite like the customers that you've already got,
Mm.
or really trying to um, improve the frequency of your current customer by servicing them better, which is leads back to the making e-commerce more profitable, because it is a lot
Mm.
cheaper to
Yeah.
to increase frequency and lifetime customer value of the customers that you've got, rather than continually get new customers in, which can be
Yeah.
very expensive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I was talking to one of my customers actually the other day for another episode we're doing down the line, and he was talking about, he's actually an online pharmacy, and he was saying how their journey was that they started offline, and one of the most important things that he needed to try and do, knowing that he had a lot of experience and knowledge of what his customers were like in the offline environment and how he treated it or how his staff treated them. Um, he was really keen and he was passionate about trying to transfer that experience onto the online journey, if you like.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
one of the great things we did at Bon Marché, where there was a very large loyalty scheme,
yeah,
was to make it omni-channel,
yeah,
which gave the customers a great benefit in terms of being able to see the points online and the ability to um,
yeah,
collect points online as well as in store, but also joins that data up between online and in store. So you start getting more of a single customer view of
yeah.
what their purchase preference and history looks like, which then can be used to target them or uh,
Mm,
identify customers like them that you want to target.
yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, he was talking about, but I won't say too much about it, but he was talking about, he was particularly he had a cohort of customers that were like eco warriors, and I'm sure that sustainability is a big piece. I've heard that mentioned a number of times in these chats, and so he wanted to make sure that his eco-friendly customers were being able to donate at checkout, for example, to a worthy cause, and then obviously they are being served in a really great way, and that particular segment converts much better in terms of buying than a dot another basket, if you like. Um, yeah, that was an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, obviously, sustainability is a um, will be increasingly important in the now and the years to come than it has been, and will start to become a defining factor,
Mm,
which then comes back to what the values of the brand are, and how they give back to and make sure that they are as sustainable as possible.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah, no,
and the same
absolutely.
thing can be said of ecological and ethical issues.
Mm, no, completely. Yeah. So, I mean, what other areas of technology have you seen have been really powerful, really interesting, and kind of pushing the curve out a bit? Because this is obviously an industry that needs to adapt and be agile all the time. What other areas of technology have you seen good advancement, or that you've maybe deployed because you've looked at different suppliers and thought, this is brilliant, and this is moving things forward in terms of anything else, any other sort of technology areas?
I mean, focusing on making e-commerce profitable,
Yeah,
an area that I don't think is focused on enough is the last mile. How the customers actually get the parcel. Um,
yeah,
e-commerce often thinks that it ends with the sale, whereas obviously the customer experience doesn't. And it can be a bit of an afterthought. So it is essential that you understand that last mile and
yeah,
offer delight to the customer in terms of that last mile. So whether it be the efficiencies and effectiveness of your logistics operation and the pick and pack, or whether it be the convenience and speed of deliveries, and how you do that, and how you do that. Sorry, on the ecological, environmental, how you do that without racking up loads of unsustainable delivery miles, because obviously that will start becoming higher up the agenda with all these individual uh, van deliveries to people's houses, which I'm sure is one of the reasons that Amazon are looking at purchasing ex Macy's stores and JC Penney stores in the States, to use them as localized fulfillment hubs, in order to increase that speed of delivery, but also to improve that convenience factor. There's a brand that in the States called Target, you might be aware of. They've done a fabulous job over the last 4 years in terms of really incorporating their stores as fulfillment hubs, as well as purchase hubs, and reduce their delivery costs substantially. With things like curbside pickups and personalized deliveries, etc. And they've really been able to reduce those fulfillment costs. And
that
then
makes
with,
sense.
yeah, and then with fashion businesses, returns obviously is a big issue,
Yeah.
because it is a significant cost to get things back and to reprocess them and get them ready for sale again. So the effectiveness and efficiency of that returns journey is vitally important, but also preventing that returns journey in the first place, through whether it be size and fit guides, or whether it be a combination of technology and human style advice, to in effect mean that the customers more pleased with their purchases, so returns less. I mean, one of the benefits of COVID is that return rates have shrunk significantly. Whether that's sustainable going forward, I don't know. But a lot of pure play retailers and omni-channel retailers have experienced return rates falling, which might be because customers are more concerned about going to the post office to return it. Or might mean that they're being more selective with their purchase in the first place. I don't know, but
That's
all very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely. I mean, that idea of doubling up your store as a fulfillment center and a purchase hub, I think you mentioned that sounds like a very logical thing to do. And I don't know. I suppose when you've got that real estate, that makes complete sense. And obviously, from a returns perspective, that overall journey is a lot quicker. That sounds like a great thing to do. Do you think, I mean, in terms of experience that you've had so far in the companies that you've dealt with, I know you have a great network and you're talking to a lot of people right now. How and this I'm just interested in knowing, how advanced are a lot of the bigger enterprise omni-channel businesses that you talk to in terms of the sort of things that you've been talking about? Do you see there's still a very large gap in terms of a need for this type of thing, or do you find it's quite advanced now and that a lot of people are doing a lot of things in this area to sort of cap off a lot of things that we've talked about?
I think it varies quite significantly. I think that there now is a recognition that things need to change, and those businesses that have got liquidity are putting quite a lot of money into that change, whether it be Inditex announcing £1 billion worth of investment into data and omnichannel, or whether it be Next. Um, um,
Yeah.
I know John Lewis have been doing quite a lot, even pre-lockdown, but are trying to step on the gas in terms of doing that. But it's so multifaceted. Not only they've got to change organisational structures as well. So we're not talking about quick, easy fixes. We are talking about, a seminal paradigm shift in the way
Yeah.
retail's run, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
then you've got the less advanced businesses who are still quite siloed in terms of their thought process and mindset,
Mhm.
but know they need to change and are trying to make that move. And then you've got the
Mm.
fairly sizable cohort that are still don't know where their balance sheet is with reduced footfall um,
Yeah.
on the high street, etc.
Mm.
They know they need to make the investments, but those investments
Mm.
are
Mm.
difficult to make because of the liquidity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are so many things that need to be done as well from a priority perspective. It's
Mm.
really difficult to pick the
Yeah.
right ones first.
Oh, completely. Especially at a time like now where there will be some massive decisions to have to be made in terms of staffing, obviously, and real estate and so on. But all the while, as you say, of course everybody knows there needs to be this step change in terms of how technology and data is used and acquired to help them kind of get that stabilization back, if you like. But no, that was there was some really great stuff in there. Um, and love chatting to you, Simon. It's really interesting. So in terms of anyone who's listening who's interested in talking to you about your consultancy and what you do for brands, or indeed any retailers out there that are actually looking for someone to direct a team in various operations that you have experience in, tell the guys how's the best way to get hold of you.
Well, you can always contact me through my website, which is futuretodayretail.com,
Sure.
or through LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, so it's Simon Calvert, Calvert.
Yeah.
And I like to ask this as a bit of a round off, really. If you had one sort of golden nugget, if you like, that the guys could take away from this particular chat, from the things we've talked about today, what would you love to share with them?
Uh, I mean, I try and, in situations of turmoil that we're currently experiencing, like to focus on the positives. And the positives are there is an inordinate amount of technology out there that can help retailers, whether they be pure play retailers or omni-channel retailers, in order to make better commercial decisions. And a lot of those technology-based opportunities aren't
Mm.
difficult to implement.
No.
Actually, it's the organisational change that perhaps is the most complex of all of them. Um, but
Absolutely.
we do retailing is quite exciting because there is a huge opportunity out there to
Mm.
change what in effect the processes and structures of the industry that have existed for the last 100 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's great actually to hear from so many partners actually out there that I talk to, and so many other leaders in our space, that people in the technology space, they understand that, and the consultants understand that as well. And what I've noticed is that more and more of them are being able to provide an extension, if you like, to the team that you already have, whether it be you in a guise of your consultancy, or a technology provider like Segmentify with a managed services team. There are many different angles and avenues where these teams exist to basically make the e-commerce direction internally so much easier, and kind of plays into what you were saying about it being more simple than ever, if you like, to deploy this technology to get the benefits. So yeah, it's really great chat, Simon, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Phil.
And hey, not at all. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope it was interesting. As I always finish off, if you haven't done already, do register at on the website segmentify.com/podcast. just to pick up everything that comes out. Simon's will be there. Any future ones that we do, just don't miss them if you're interested in what we're talking about. And do us a favor and leave us a review on Apple Player or follow us on Spotify and so on, usual sort of thing. And if you've got any questions or you want to be involved, or you've got any particular topics, that you listen to somebody and think, I really have a question about X, Y, and Z, and you want us to discuss it, then just email me anytime at phil@segmentify.com. But thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you, Simon, once again.
Thank you, Phil.
No worries. And we'll see you again soon.
Put us to the test and let us prove we can drive more revenue for you. Sign up for a completely free proof of concept or split test against your current provider, set up and optimized by our team within a few days at segmentify.com/demo.